This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, broadcasting in Nairobi on Spice FM around the country. We're also live streaming the show on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. The live stream is up, and we're also live on KTN Home. Let's have a conversation about harnessing technology, accelerating transition from this COVID-19. The things that we've talked about, COVID-19 shut down all schools, let all learners go home. So what happens? How are you able to continue learning and education during this period? And it was a big challenge because now it's people thinking, how can we transition to online and use technology to continue offering tuition and learning to our learners? Many universities and colleges had now to start thinking of how to roll out online classes in the country. And we've talked about this. We basically said it appeared clearly that many of our universities were caught flat-footed on this. Did you have a platform that is ready? Did you have a way in which students from wherever they are could actually be able to access your online platforms? You could sort them out in terms of data access and how then they be able to get online and access the information. Who would be able to log in? Who would be able to get into, for example, if you needed research material in library, how can you access all that? How can you have conversations with your lecturers online? This was a challenge, and many universities actually adapted quite fast, and they moved into this. But still, I think that's a learning curve that they took on quite well, but many, many challenges still abound.
Indeed, there would be, and one wonders why, because the university is supposed to be the citadels. They're supposed to be the paragons by which you determine not just learning but innovation. And that is why when you look at all these departments that universities have, the understanding is that new ideas ought to be coming out. Yes, much as people are taught and trained in what exists, but there is also the idea of new ideas coming from these institutions, because that is the whole point of knowledge. You don't sit on what you just have, you improve on it.
Sure.
And that is why when people graduate, you are told that you're given power to read and all that pertains to it. You're not told to sit on your laurels and feel that you have reached the end. You haven't. The message is you've just begun.
Exactly.
Yes. But it appears that when it comes to research and development, that very many of our institutions of higher learning don't seem to have documented a focus in this department. No. They are institutions of higher learning, period. But as to furthering knowledge through research and development, that unfortunately is not very clearly documented.
Oh, sure. And then we're also looking at embracing the reins and taking hold of the reins of things like innovation and development, trends, things that are happening in the new world, which would take on a different way of doing things. And then throw all of that in together into this big pot of new strides that need to be taken because of COVID-19. And then you have what people really need to essentially sit up and take notice of what is going on. Can we have universities where nobody actually has to be in the same room with a lecturer and students? Is it possible to have that done and still have the same quality of education and still the same impartation of knowledge that would take place just because I'm seeing you face to face? And I think that's the world that we have to be embracing right now.
Yes. Let's have a conversation with the Vice Chancellor of Kibu University, and this is Professor Ipara, who joins us on the line now via technology. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
I think let's just start off by introduce Kibu University to our audience. There are those that have heard about it, there are those that know it, and there are those that I'm sure are hearing Kibu University for the first time.
Well, I'll start with my name, Professor Isaac Ipara, the Vice Chancellor of Kibu University. Kibu is just about 7 kilometers from the Bungoma CBD and 400 kilometers from Nairobi. It's in Bungoma County, the western region. It's the 23rd public university. And when I talk about public, I'm talking about fully fledged, having been awarded charter in 2015. It currently has a student population of 7,500 and faculty and staff of 428. We have about 50 accredited programs, 5 schools and faculties, and if I could just mention, top on the list is the School of Computer and Informatics. We also have School of Business. We have Faculty of Education, Faculty of Science. We just started School of Nursing. Thank you.
Why, Professor, would you say that you decided when you're listing the courses that you offer, you started with IT and informatics? Why did you start with that?
Right from the beginning, we identified that as our niche. That is our flagship program. And we have invested heavily in terms of human resource, in terms of infrastructure, hardware, software, and buildings for that particular sphere of education.
Mm-hmm. Now, detail for us the heavy investment, the focus. How does it manifest itself? The buildings, okay, the equipment, yes. Now, what is the end product of all this investment? What is it that the university has produced? What does it hope to produce in the future? And how does it hope to impact the space that this particular niche has in this country?
The first thing is that for us, IT is like fire. If you look back historically to the invention of fire, this is the invention that transformed everything. Mm-hmm. So for us, IT is the backbone of everything we do, teaching and learning and administration. So we use IT to help us design our curriculum, develop content. We use it for content delivery. And then we use it for research and innovation. Quite a number of our students and lecturers have come up with innovations, some that are being incubated now in other universities. Our product has impacted quite positively out there in terms of employment, in terms of job creation, and we get feedback from employers and the students themselves about how useful training in IT has been to them.
Mm. So as we look at COVID-19 and how it really did disrupt the learning process, whether it was from younger children going as high as the university and even higher than that, how did you as a university feel those effects? What did you see that changed?
Exactly 1 year ago, we closed the university. I remember it was a Thursday. And you see, at that time, we were in a state of panic. We didn't know what was going to happen, how we were going to get out of this situation. As it was a situation of hopelessness and helplessness. But you see, after a short time, we realized that we cannot continue sitting and mourning. Something had to be done because COVID-19 was not going away, and it was going to be a long haul. So Senate had to meet and agree on what to do. And a few months earlier, in 2019, our council had given management exactly 1 year to ensure automation of all operations, including administrative operations and teaching and learning. We had established a directorate of open, distance, and electronic learning. So we already had some infrastructure. We already had a structure. Then the good thing for us is that we had just won a funding from the National Research Fund of about 64 million for IT. And we had already procured some equipment. We had procured devices. So we had a point to start from. So the only thing we had to do now was to change the culture and attitude of staff. We started by training staff and students in a small way to offer classes online or through a blended mode. So we started with the continuing students. And when we closed, we had just about 3 weeks to go to exams. So we were still completing our laboratory sessions and students were revising. So for those from social sciences, the problem was not very big because they could access material online. The challenge was with those who had practical courses to complete. But all this said, we had to seek for partnership, and Commonwealth of Learning was quite handy. They gave us a grant to train staff at very short notice and to also train students in use of technology in a program that was referred to as technology-enabled learning. And that way we were able to keep our students engaged. And that is what gave us the confidence in September to admit first-year students who did their orientation and 3 months of studies online. They only came in December to do their exams, to complete the courses face-to-face and do their exams. Thank you.
As a university that, like you said, your primary school and department is computer and informatics, have you developed any platforms that then you can say, this is what we are using? We are not using other platforms. We're actually using an in-house platform to offer our online classes, be it audiovisual, be it a way of accessing the material from the university.
No, we've not been able to do that because, as you know, most of these platforms are controlled elsewhere. Connectivity is also controlled outside the university. So we have had no choice but to prepare our material. And now this material is planted on the existing platform. And you see, these platforms also come with a cost. They come with policies. You have to pay, you have to sign agreement. So for now, we have not been able to innovate our own in-house platform.
Is there such a plan? Like with the lessons that now we are looking and seeing out of COVID-19, the experiences that we've seen, perhaps it's a very good opportunity to position Kibabi University as the one that offers this kind of solutions to other universities across the continent.
We are doing that because right now we've realized with the training we are giving our staff, they can develop content. And this content can also be, students can access this content through ERP. ERP is, of course, we have procured it from an external supplier, but we control it ourselves. So that is the closest we have gone. But we are still working on other innovations, can bring down the cost because relying on external suppliers, service supplier providers can be very expensive.
Could you explain to our listeners what an ERP system is and what it does and why it's integral to the plans that you have, please?
ERP is an enterprise resource plan. It's a software that automates operations. They could be administrative. If I can give the example of a student, this is an online software that can enable students to apply for admission, to register to be admitted. They can pay fees and it is reflected on their portals. They can get their results. They can get any communication through, even if it's through bulk mobile communication. But it is also a system where you can upload content for students and students can access it whenever they can, rather than rely on a system that students can only access when they have paid for and when access is allowed.
Do you use the same system for administrative purposes in the university?
We do. In fact, during the lockdown, particularly, all our meetings were online. All our conferences were online. Symposia were online. Communication was through this ERP. Processing of payments for service providers and suppliers, banking was through this system, and it made our work cheaper and very effective.
So do you think an opportunity then was presented that some kind of permanency would then be instituted because of what we were forced to do in the first place? So now, obviously, you've seen prices coming down. You've seen that you can get things done even if you're not moving, or rather face to face. Is it something that can then be adopted for the future? And not just
like
when
I
something
said
is wrong.
earlier. Like I said earlier, our council, and it's documented in the minutes, had given the university 1 year to automate. And having gone through the COVID-19 experience, we have realized that things will never be the same. And the way to go is digital, is technology. The only thing we have to do now is to make that technology serve us in the best way and in the cheapest way. Otherwise, there's no other alternative. We have adopted that. Even now, we still have our meetings, although we have encouraged face-to-face operations. We still conduct most of our business online. We have embraced the blended learning approach so that even when students are on campus, they don't attend all the classes face-to-face. They attend some face-to-face, some are blended, and some are online.
When it does come to teaching, I think it was yesterday we saw some great pictures of some of the universities in the Stanford. It was Stanford University. We saw the great picture of an entire class taking place and everybody was on Zoom. Professor was in the room by himself. Do we see a situation where this can happen, where students can be anywhere really and teaching will continue?
This has happened. Our master's and PhD classes were conducted online, where a lecturer is alone at home or in his office, and students are scattered all over the country. We had our defense, master's defense of thesis and PhD defense of thesis online, where you have external examiners, the whole panel in different locations, but conducting business and very, very smoothly.
If you're at liberty, Professor, you mentioned that you do have certain innovations that are at various stages of incubation. Would you mention some of these innovations, or are they something that are still hush-hush and will only be mentioned once certain proofs of concept have been brought into being?
Yeah, I'll just mention the general.
Yes.
The general characteristics. One that we have is some smart device that can alert farmers on climate change, on weather, so that they can decide the right time to plant. It can also alert farmers on possibilities of, say, thunderstorm. The problem is we are not able to provide mitigation against, say, hailstorm, but the farmers can know and anticipate what the situation will be. We also have innovation that automates feeding of chicken, so that the farmer does not have to be present to feed the chicken. The food can be loaded in some container, and there's a mechanism where if the amount of food on the serving. The serving plate is exhausted, then a valve opens and more food, if it is pellets, drop up to the amount that is adequate, and then the gate closes again. So these are some of the innovations that we have.
What would be some of the challenges that you see students may face when it comes to, obviously, the technology that is needed to continue with their learning? Or are you saying that, or are we looking at a situation where everybody has what they need to continue with class if it goes virtual in any situation?
No, we have serious challenges, particularly with regard to students. Challenge number one is affordability of the devices. Not all students can afford smartphones or laptops. No, so that becomes a big challenge. And even those who have still face the possibility of expensive costs of bundles. Then, of course, we have unreliable connectivity. A number of times we have had meetings, and meetings have been interrupted by problems outside the university. So these are big challenges. We also still have the issue of attitude. I recall last year when we were admitting first-year students, a parent in Mandera said he wants his child to go to the university and meet the professor face-to-face, not through a laptop. And you see, we had to accept to organize special face-to-face, enhanced face-to-face learning for about 300 students who are not able to access online because of attitude of their parents and maybe themselves because mainly of the background they've come from.
Professor Isaac Ipara Odeo, the Vice Chancellor of Kibu University, we thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. Of course, you're aware of the big news that's coming out of the region, the death of Tanzania's President John Pombe Magufuli, and all the messages of condolences this morning coming from various people and sectors from across the globe. This is an opportunity for you on behalf of maybe your university to give a message to the people of Tanzania.
Yeah, when I heard about this last night, I was touched. I was deeply touched because this is somebody who was one of us. He was in academia at the University of Dar es Salaam before he joined politics. He's always been a very effective performer wherever he was. When he was a deputy minister and became minister, I've been following his performance throughout. So on behalf of council, management, senate, faculty, and staff and students of Kibu University, I wish to send condolences to the people of the Republic of Tanzania, and more specifically the family of the late Dr. Magufuli. May his soul rest in peace.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We wish you a great day. Asante sana. Professor Isaac Ipara Odeo is the Vice Chancellor of Kibu University. Asante.
Just a moment. Can you allow me a minute?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, may I take this opportunity to thank you for providing this platform for me to share what we are doing out there, but also to invite everybody who has time to our virtual graduation on Friday, 26th March 2021 at 10 a.m. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. And we wish all the best to all the graduates. Asante sana, Professor. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, 7 minutes to 8 o'clock. Time for us to take a break. We'll be back shortly on KTN Home, on Spice FM and online.